that you have a mala. If you don't have one, that's okay, but I would make sure that you have a mala with you for later on when we do the japa meditation. I'm not playing any music while I'm talking because it will start to compete with my voice. Once we go silent, I will turn on some soft music so that you have something to inspire you to go deeper and deeper within. So we'll start by sitting tall, rolling the shoulders down and back, lifting the crown of the head, and just really make sure that there is ease. If sitting is not comfortable on the floor, sit on a chair, but make sure you're not leaning against the back. Yeah, you have to be away from the back side of your chair. If you're on the floor, I highly recommend that your hips are higher than the floor. Yeah, so like lift yourself up a little bit and allow something to be underneath your knees so that the hips don't get achy. Yeah. So let's close our eyes right now. And if there's a lot of images or if there's a lot of thoughts that are racing through your awareness right now, just take a deep inhale and breathe it out. Big sigh out. Good. And again, deep breath in. And sigh it out. Wonderful. One more time. Deep breath in. And sigh it out. Now begin to inhale through your nose, back out through your nose, keeping your eyes at the third eye, internal gaze, as if you're looking up to the heavens. Now with that steadiness at the third eye, visualize the breath rising up the spine from the earth up into the spine, filling your body with the life force. Let it rise all the way up to your third eye, illuminating the third eye center. And then exhale gently out through your nose. Feel the downward moving of the out breath. Now visualize as you inhale this breath that it's illuminating the self with this golden light, this pearlescent white divine light filling your body. And as you breathe out, feel this golden light drawing away any impurities. As we know, the golden light is a high frequency metal that can purify. Let's just continue this breath, visualizing the inhale, this beautiful white light filling your body. Let it fill up your room that you're sitting in, and as you exhale, let it purify you. Let it take away all those lower vibrational feelings and thoughts of fear, anxiety, doubt. Breathe it out. Instead, breathe in this light that fills you with joy, with immense peace. And breathing out all that which no longer serves you. I invite you to move at your own pace right now, really consciously breathing here, slowly and deeply. Begin to elongate the breath to 4 to 5 counts. See if you can hold the in-breath for 4 to 5 counts. Breathing out for 4 to 5 counts. And then stay in that empty space of nothingness for 4 to 5 counts. Beginning to access your light body. Now moving this breath into the golden lotus breath. As you inhale this light up from the earth, up into the central channel, let it come to your heart. And see your heart as a golden lotus, and feel the lotus opening up as you breathe in. Feel it expanding, this golden light from your heart, shooting out in all directions, all around the earth. And then as you exhale, feel the petal of the lotus returning into this beautiful, tight bud full of promise and new life. And you keep visualizing yourself being into the center of this golden lotus. And this lotus is your heart, and you're sitting in the center of it. And just keep moving with your breath, visualizing the opening and the closing of this golden lotus. Your heart space. Practice the pauses as well. As you expand your heart wide open, this big opening of the golden lotus, send love out to all of humanity right now. Sending love to all those who are in deep fear. And as you exhale, return back into this deep trust, connecting to the nothingness, to the cosmic womb with which lies all potential for creation. Keep your focus at the heart as a golden lotus. Become the golden lotus. Merge if you can. Now slowly bring your awareness to your third eye, coming into the cosmic union breath, where we visualize at the third eye the masculine, the feminine coming together in union. On each side, there is the two-petaled lotus at the third eye, and each petal signifies the wing of a swan. And as you inhale, feel the swan opening its wings. As you exhale, feel the swan rising up through the stargate. Inhale, feel your third eye opening, expanding your awareness, your consciousness. As you breathe out, feel yourself going higher, accessing more of your divine self. On the wings of the rising Kundalini, And continue at your own pace, strong visualization. Feel your own unification of your masculine and your feminine energies coming together in ecstatic union at the third eye, allowing you to transcend into higher states of being. Claiming your sovereignty. Allow yourself to soar high. As you and I have gathered here this morning to anchor in the 5D reality onto this earth plane. Now slowly draw your attention straight to the third eye. Internal gaze to the prefrontal cortex. Rolling the eyes up, perhaps you can see a blue color or a purple color. You might see white or all these sparkles like a sky full of stars. And we'll slowly bring our hands in a mudra called Hiryangabhara, which means the cosmic womb, bringing all your fingertips together, and let your hands rest in your lap, just in front of your sacral energy center. Arms relaxed to the side as we come into Amrita breath. Amrita means nectar. Bring in the nectar of life, which is our breath. Once we realize how sacred the breath is, we will also conquer this virus. This virus is teaching about the importance of breathing, of the pran, which is the life force given by the supreme reality, the supreme intelligence. Your body doesn't function without it. So we sip in the breath. As we inhale, it's like you're sipping in the breath. The mouth is slightly open. And imagine like a river is flowing in as you breathe in. And as you breathe in, pull the energy up the central channel. So your palms are coming up. And then just in front of the heart, turn your fingers up and bring your hands into Padma Mudra as if you're sipping the prana from your cup. Yeah. And then let the hands face you as if you're cleansing yourself right now with that breath. Cleansing the eyes, let it rise up, and then turn your palms open and spread that energy all around you as you breathe out through your nose. And then let the hands come back together in the cosmic womb mudra. Bring your fingertips together at the base here and pull the energy up as you inhale, sipping the breath in. Making it come into lotus mudra, sipping, keep inhaling, keep inhaling. When you're ready to exhale, arms reach up. You can lift your gaze even and breathe out through your nose. And I just invite you to move at your own pace here. So breathing in through an open mouth. Imagine that you're breathing in the supreme intelligence right into your body. As my teacher says, breathing God through you. And this is when miracles happen, when you realize that you can breathe in the supreme reality right into your being. I'd like you to visualize this breath as a river, this beautiful river of light that you're breathing in, pulling up. And this river has all the colors of the universe. Breathing it into you, breathing the rainbow colors. Next time, your arms float down, let them rest on your thighs. And just feel this expansion. We're magnetizing the spine, the Sushumna Nadi, increasing your inner radiance, your inner brilliance. Increases the magnetic field that emanates from your being. Creating a beautiful protective shield for all that which isn't of the light. And we'll begin to practice Prakasha Pranayama. Prakasha allows for a very strong energetic shield to be protected around us in this time. You can do Prakash Pranayama every day. And it's very helpful to stay healthy and strong and stay really centered and anchored in love and light and not in the lower vibrations. So it's 7 short inhalations through the nose. Be careful that you're not accidentally breathing out in between. And imagine again that you're pulling up this light, feeling your whole body all the way up towards the third eye. Then try to hold the breath for as long as you can. Notice the prana moving inside of you as you do that. And then a very gentle exhale through your nose and feel the downward movement of the breath. Okay, so I'll demonstrate the first round for those of you who've never done it before. So 7 short, sharp breaths in through the nose. Wonderful. Try at your own pace now. Go ahead. 7 short, sharp breaths in. Let the light swirl inside of you as long as you comfortably can. And then a slow breath out through your nose. On your next exhale, release the pranayama practice, keeping your gaze at your third eye, and just notice how you feel. Feel that expansion of self. Now very gently, just move your hands up and down your thighs. And just start to feel, as you press with the heels of your hands down into your thighs, just start to feel the earth again, just bringing our awareness a little bit more down towards the earth. And allow your eyes to just slightly open. Allow some light to enter in. As we're moving into Saraswati Kriya. And this is a beautiful Kriya to transcend, to have access to higher knowledge, gnosis, for increased clarity and expanded states of awareness. Yeah, everything just starts to now click. Yeah, when you have an expanded state of awareness or consciousness, information suddenly starts to make all sense, and you have a greater understanding of this mystery we call life. So it's with the mudra, and I'm just going to demonstrate. We start with the left hand. Okay, so you start with your left hand, and you bring your pinky finger to your thumb. And we say, just want to make sure I read it right here. It's called Ara, Ara, and then you bring your ring finger to your thumb, Fat, P-H-A-T, Fat, and then you bring your middle finger to your thumb, Sa, index finger to thumb, Na. Then your right hand, pinky finger to the thumb, D, D-E-E, right? So D, ring finger, you say D again, middle finger to the thumb on the right, D again, index finger, D. Yeah, so it sounds like this. Arafat sana D D D D. Arafat sana D D D D. Yeah, so every time you say a word, you push another finger to your thumb. The DD is always on your right hand, going from pinky, ring, middle, index finger to thumb. Okay, so we practice together. Okay, so here we go. Arafat sana D D D D. 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 Arafat sana D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. 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 D, D, D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D, D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Little quicker. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. D, D, D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. 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 D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Arafat Sana. D, 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 D. Allow yourself to be the chalice to receive the wisdom of the Supreme Intelligence, known in the Christian Gnosis as Sophie or Sophia. In the Vedic tradition, she's known as Saraswati, the Divine Mother, Mother Mary in the Catholic religion, the Divine Mother who is form and formless. So gently let your hands come back towards your thighs. And now we should be really ready to start our japa meditation. And japa meditation is a very powerful way to go deeper within. It allows you to transcend your lower mind, because the lower mind is stilled when we pull all our senses inward into the spine to that one pointed awareness, and to that one point, which is the repeating of the sacred syllables, which called a mantra. And then we slip beyond that lower mind and we start to access this higher knowledge. So use your mala here. And if you don't have one, that's okay. You can use your fingers on top. So thumb, just like we did just now, you can just go down your fingers and keep track of when you've completed one mantra at a time. If you need your little notes that I send you, feel free to open that up on your computer or on your phone, or just try to repeat it with me. It is a longer chant. If you get really frustrated, if you're like, oh, I can't remember it and I want to close my eyes, you can always come back to so hum. And then the next beat, so hum. Yes, no problem coming back to that. Otherwise, we'll chant the Gayatri mantra. And this is invoking the solar quality, the light, the sun, the light of the Supreme Intelligence to come in to provide protection. The Gayatri mantra is very beneficial right now to chant, to increase protection from the dark and from all those which don't serve the light. So we'll start repeating it out loud for at least 21 rounds. We'll go softer, whisper, and then we'll go silent. Okay. When I ring the soft bell here, that will mean you can drop your mantra and you'll just stay for a moment, anchored, and then I'll guide you slowly out of it to complete our practice this morning. So we'll begin sitting tall. If you need to make some last minute adjustments, go ahead. Let's place our thumb on the first bead and we'll begin. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Pradyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurrbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Softer. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Whisper it. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarinyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonam Prachodayat. Continue internally. You can also revert to Soham.
Shri Hari Om, Shri Hari Om, Om Hari Hari Om Shri Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Shri Hari Om, Shri Hari Om, Shri Hari Om, Shri Hari Om, Shri Hari Om.
Gently release your mantra. Keep your gaze at your third eye. Notice how amazing it feels to connect so deeply with yourself. A deep peace, deep trust, deep contentment. Very slowly start to bring your awareness back to the space that you find yourself in. Notice the room. Notice your seat, what you're sitting on. And begin to move your hands up and down your thighs and allow your eyes to slowly flutter open. Take your time. Maybe moving your shoulders a little bit. Allow yourself to sit tall. Let's bring our palms together at the heart. And allow your head to bow in as we commune with our hearts. Especially now, we're invited to really return to the intelligence of the heart, to live through the intelligence of the heart. We'll stay in more peace and love and joy. And from that, compassion can blossom. Take a moment for gratitude for our community. Feel deep gratitude for the access of knowledge that you've already attained and continue to increase through your practice. Feel deep appreciation for all the synchronicities that are happening in your life. For the presence of loved ones, pets, for your health, and for your connection to the Supreme Reality. We will complete our sadhana as always with the sound of Om. We will inhale, we'll sweep our arms down and up. Let your palms join together as you exhale. Pull the energy down the central channel, sigh out through your mouth. Let the hands land back at the heart. We'll do that again. Deep breath in. Big sigh out as your palms draw back together to the heart. Next time the hands come down, we'll chant Om. Deep breath in to chant. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It was a pleasure to have you. I will send you the recording, and you can do this later if you like.